Good to see you all again. I was up in Canada last Sabbath, and the weather's just been phenomenal here on the West Coast the last 2 weeks. Just really, really enjoying this stuff. Been out running, I get a little more suntan. So it's still me. I know I'm a little darker than before, but it's still me. And I'm glad to be back in Seattle area. You know, we all know that God has an awe-inspiring master plan. He's working out things below, each in their own order, each in their own time, and each in their own way. We also have known for a long time there appear to be 3 resurrections in the Bible. You talk to some scholars, they'll say, well, there's lots of resurrections. I mean, Christ was resurrected. Is that the first resurrection? There was the people that were resurrected when he was resurrected, when the graves opened and people came out to physical life. How do you count the resurrections? Well, we've always classified the 3 main big resurrections. And one of them, the one that's waiting there for you and I after we die and Jesus Christ returns and we meet him in the clouds in the air, one of them is called the first resurrection. It's also called a better resurrection. Have you ever stopped to wonder why the first resurrection that God holds out for us is a better one than the other 2? I mean, we're all going to have a chance to have eternal life. We're all going to end up in the new heaven and the new earth if we're there spirit beings, or we'll be dead forever. Why is the first resurrection a better one? Have you stopped to think about that? Just have time for one brief point on that regard. So if you'll go back to Revelation 20, verse 6, we'll talk about this. Why is the first resurrection a better resurrection? It says here, Revelation 20, verse 6, "Blessed and holy is he who has part in what? The first resurrection." That's what God holds out for us. "Over such the second death has no power." There's one of the side points. If we're in the first resurrection, there's no more death, no more sorrow, no more pain. But isn't that true of the other resurrections? This is true, the other resurrection, when they eventually become spirit beings. But as we'll see here, there's a difference between the second and third resurrection and this resurrection, over which the second death has no power, but they shall be priests of God. We know that's our promise. You may not think of yourself as a priest. You're sitting here, you're taking notes, you're learning these things. There's a lot more absorbed subconsciously in the human mind than we can imagine. We were talking in the marriage class this morning how that some things happened when we were very young. It may take years to even analyze and realize that was the foundation for how I feel. Just a quick story, when I was growing up, I had asthma when I was real young. And I can remember very vividly going up to Biloxi, Mississippi from Pensacola, Florida. My dad was in the Navy, and we'd go to this hospital. My mom would take me in once or twice a month, and I'd get these painful shots. And I'd always say, I was 4 or 5 years old, "Spank me, Mommy, spank me. I don't want to feel the pain of that needle sticking in me." And she would. It took me years to realize when I would walk into a hospital some years later to visit a member who was sick or something, I just got the same creepy feeling. Something's wrong here. I'm not comfortable in this hospital. Finally, I put 2 and 2 together and realized, that happened when I was a young person. And I absorbed that message, and I can outgrow this, and I did. And it doesn't bother me anymore. But you sit here day in and day out learning and growing to become a priest, become a teacher, become part of the new administration. If you look back at the Old Testament, there was a division between the physical kingship, who managed the physical affairs of the country, and that of the spiritual side, the prophets, that handled the spiritual side, the Levites, and did the sacrifices. There was a division. But in the world tomorrow, we're going to be combined. You're going to be a king and a priest. We'll have one administration under Jesus Christ ruling from Jerusalem, one place, one system of government. And what you're absorbing now, whether you know it or not, like it or not, when you have the resurrected mind of a spirit brain, you're going to remember all that. You're going to think, wow, I remember what it was like to be human. Jesus Christ remembers what it was like to be human. He understood. He's our high priest because he was tempted in all points, every point, just like we are as a human being. He can relate to us. We can relate to other people at that time. But again, why is the first resurrection a better resurrection? Aren't we all going to end up in the same place anyhow? We will have a chance to reign with Christ 1,000 years, we just read. Think about it. We will be the first group of spirit beings besides Jesus Christ and the angels that were created some time ago that will have eternal life. We'll have a 1,000-year head start over everybody else. What can you learn as a spirit being with that brilliant mind of yours for 1,000 years of experiencing life vicariously like Christ does now through us, with physical human beings learning their lessons, teaching them, no, this is the way you should go, don't go that way. How much are you going to absorb through 1,000 years of advanced training before the others even have a chance for eternal life? That's a big, major reason why the first resurrection is an improvement, is a better, but it's not the ultimate one, in my mind at least. You know, as babies, we have to learn as we grow, every step of the way. The human being was made to have a mom, and maybe for 16, 18 years, and a dad, and a relationship there to learn vicariously how to walk, how to talk, how to not mess their pants, how to eat without slobbering all over themselves and rubbing it in their face. I have some pictures of my daughter when she was young with chocolate cake in her hands and she's wiping it on her face. We had to learn those things. Well, the spirit beings will have 1,000 years to learn to be a spirit being. We'll be able to train under the tutelage of Jesus Christ from Jerusalem. And it does say in Hebrews 11:35 that indeed this is a better resurrection. Why is that? Because it's the first resurrection to immortal life. Rulership in the millennium will happen. And the other two resurrections, if you stop and think about it, and we'll have a lot of time to go through a lot of this, but the other two resurrections are all physical resurrections, aren't they? At the end of the millennium, that resurrection will be spiritual. But right now, they'll be coming into the millennium. We'll have 1,000 years of spirit minds, and they'll have 1,000 years of human minds. Quite a different plane. And then in the second resurrection, they'll be coming back, and there'll be physical human beings that'll have a time period to learn, to think, and to choose, to understand the truth for the first time. So it's a physical resurrection. First resurrection, first and foremost, is the best because it gives us eternal life ahead of everybody else. Not because we're better, but because Jesus Christ is offering mercy and patience and kindness. And so we can look forward to that better resurrection. Ultimately, if there is no resurrection, death wins. Death wins. Let's go back to Revelation 21, verse 4. But who is the final victory? Who's the one that's going to make this resurrection happen? In 1 Corinthians 15, 25 through 26, you don't have to turn there, it says, for he must reign till he has put all enemies under his feet, Jesus Christ. Looking forward to that resurrected time when we'll be in the millennium. The last enemy to be destroyed is death. Looking forward now, 1,000 years through the millennium, on to the great white throne judgment, on to the time when, as Peter describes, the heaven and earth is burned up. We have a relic of an earth. Then what's going to happen? Revelation 21, verse 4. We see New Jerusalem coming down from heaven. You think about this time, everybody's going to be a spirit being, or they're just not going to be. They'll either be eternal or they won't be there at all. We're all going to be spirit beings, and out of heaven will come this big 1,500 square or rectangular edifice, probably a spiritual edifice. 1,500 square miles. That's like going from Los Angeles to Minneapolis. It's a long way. Or when I was giving this in Canada, from Vancouver down to Mexico, into Mexico quite a ways. That's a big edifice. You put that on the earth, I think we'd have a little bit of problem with the axis, wouldn't we? That heavy of a physical building. There's some indications the streets of gold that you can see through. This is probably a spiritual edifice. So what's going to happen? Who wins? Why is the first resurrection better? Because we have a head start to get there. But we all will win in the long run, Revelation 21, verse 4. And God will wipe away every tear in this New Jerusalem from their eyes. And there shall be no more death. Zero, zip, nada, none. No more death. No more sorrow. As spirit beings living together forever. No more sorrow. No more crying. There shall be no more pain. For some of us, we get a little older. I've been jogging quite a bit. I went too far yesterday, and I feel the pain in my shoulders and my ankles. And no more pain, no more sorrow. It's gone. The former things have passed away. There'll be a whole new beginning. And that was what makes the ultimate victory Jesus Christ's victory. Death is swallowed up in victory, according to 1 Corinthians 15, 53 through 58. You know, this is not the end of the beginning as we begin this new endeavor with a new heaven, new earth. It's not like we are physical human beings, now we're at the end, no more physical human beings. It's not the end That's not the beginning of the end for life. It's the end of the beginning. This human existence is the beginning. That's going to be life forever. We're just beginning this process. We ain't seen nothing yet. Stick around, because there's a new heaven and a new earth and a God and Jesus Christ who is going to bring it all to pass. Death will be swallowed up in victory, especially for us in that first resurrection.